The contract arrived on a Tuesday, which should have been my first warning. Nothing good ever came to Caldera Station on a Tuesday. The orbital hub's artificial gravity always acted up on Tuesdays. The recycled air tasted more metallic than usual. And worst of all, that was the day my ex-girlfriend Aria had left me stranded here 2 years ago with nothing but a toolkit and a bruised ego. I was elbow-deep in the guts of a Terran freighter's navigation array when my comm unit buzzed. The message was brief, professional, and absurdly well compensated. Someone needed their ship repaired, 5-day deadline, payment up front plus completion bonus that made my eyes water. The ship's designation made my heart skip a beat. Silver Mirth. Her ship, Aria's ship. I should have deleted the message. Should have gone back to the freighter's tangled mess of circuits and pretended I'd never seen it. Instead, I found myself in the station's lower docking ring 3 hours later, staring at the familiar hull of the modified Corsair-class vessel that had once been my second home. The Silver Mirth looked rough. Scorch marks decorated her starboard side, and her port engine nacelle hung at an angle that made my teeth hurt. Someone had been flying her hard and fast, probably running from something with more firepower than sense. Classic Aria. The docking bay was empty, except for a single figure waiting by the boarding ramp. Not Aria, thank the stars, but an Alith commander in full ceremonial armor. The Alith were humanoid enough if you ignored the extra set of eyes and the way their skin shifted colors with their mood. This one's skin was cycling through various shades of authoritative purple. "Marcus Hale," the commander said. It wasn't a question. His voice had that distinctive Elith double tone, like two people speaking in perfect harmony. "I am Commander Sithrak. You come highly recommended." "By who?" I couldn't help asking. Nobody recommended me for anything anymore. My reputation in the Mechanics Guild was somewhere between competent asshole and brilliant disaster. The ship's previous owner spoke highly of your technical abilities. Sithrak's extra eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture I'd learned meant mild amusement among his people. She said you were the only one who truly understood her modifications. Previous owner. Past tense. My stomach dropped. "Where's Aria?" "Captain Lorne has sold the vessel to our delegation. She is pursuing other opportunities." The purple in his skin deepened. "Your concern is touching but unnecessary. You are here to repair the ship, not to inquire about personnel matters." Something was wrong. Aria would never sell the Silver Mirth. She'd stolen that ship fair and square from a consortium weapons dealer. Spent 3 years modifying every system until it was more than just a ship. It was her life, her freedom, her middle finger to anyone who tried to tie her down, including me. "Right," I said, shouldering my tool bag. "What needs fixing?" "Everything," Sithrak said simply. The ship experienced multiple system failures during its last journey. Primary engines, navigation, life support, weapon systems. We need it operational within 5 standard days. 5 days for a complete overhaul, that's impossible. Your payment reflects the difficulty. Half has already been transferred to your account. The remainder upon completion. He handed me a security badge. You will have full access to the ship. My associate will check on your progress periodically. The associate turned out to be another Alith, smaller and quieter, with skin that stayed a nervous yellow-green. He introduced himself as Supervisor Kex and promptly stationed himself in the docking bay's observation booth, where he could watch my every move through the security cameras. I boarded the Silver Mirth, and memory hit me like a cargo hauler. The main corridor still smelled like that awful Centauri coffee Aria loved. Her jacket hung on the same hook by the airlock. The walls were covered with star charts from a dozen systems, marked with her handwritten notes about the best bars, the worst customs officers, and which planets had decent sunset views. The bridge was worse. Her lucky dice still sat on the navigation console. A half-empty bottle of Altarian whiskey waited in the captain's chair armrest compartment, right where she always kept it. Everything screamed Arya, except Arya herself was nowhere to be found. I started with the engines because that's what you do when you're trying not to think about missing ex-girlfriends who may or may not be in trouble. The damage was extensive, but repairable. Someone had pushed the faster-than-light drive past its red line, probably during a chase. The crystalline matrix that regulated the jump field was cracked, but not shattered. 3 days of work, maybe 4. It was while removing the damaged FTL regulator that I found it. A circuit board that didn't belong, wedged behind the primary power coupling. The soldering was hasty, amateur work that made my professional pride cringe. But I recognized the technique. Arya had done this herself, and recently. The board itself was nothing special, just a standard data storage module. But carved into its surface with a laser cutter were symbols that made my breath catch. Our old code. The one we'd developed during long nights in deep space, when encrypted communications weren't secure enough. A children's game turned into our private language. I glanced at the observation booth. Supervisor Kex was still watching, his yellow-green skin pulsing with what I'd learned was boredom. I pocketed the board and went back to work on the engines, keeping my movements casual, professional, boring. That night in my quarters, I decoded the message. It took 3 hours and half a bottle of station rotgut to work through Arya's improvised encryption. What I found sobered me up faster than a decompression alarm. Marcus, if you're reading this, it means they brought you the ship. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The Alith have something on me. Something I can't fight. They need the ship for a job, but more importantly, they need what's hidden in it. Data about a new technology. Universe-changing stuff. The kind that shouldn't exist. I couldn't destroy it. They're watching me too closely. But I could make sure it went to the one person stubborn enough and smart enough to figure out what to do with it. Don't trust them. Don't trust anyone. And whatever you do, don't come looking for me, please. Just this once. Walk away. I read it 3 times before the implications sank in. Arya was in trouble. The Alith were using her somehow. And I was apparently her Hail Mary play. The long shot she was counting on to what saved the day. Stop the bad guys. I was a mechanic, not a hero. Heroes had better dental plans and fewer back problems. But I couldn't walk away, not from her. The next morning, I went back to work on the Silver Mirth with new eyes. Every system I touched. I searched for anomalies. Every panel I removed. I checked for hidden compartments. Arya was clever, but I knew her tricks. We'd spent 2 years flying together. 2 years learning each other's rhythms and habits. I found the first clue in the navigation computer. Buried in the stellar cartography database was a file that shouldn't exist, labeled with coordinates that didn't match any known system. The file was encrypted with military-grade security, the kind that would take years to crack unless you knew the key. Unless you knew that Arya's favorite constellation was Cassiopeia, and she always used her mother's birthday as a seed number. The file contained technical specifications that made my head spin. Schematics for something called a consciousness amplification matrix. Pages of equations describing quantum entanglement patterns that could theoretically link multiple minds across any distance. And most terrifying of all, test data showing the device had already been built and successfully tested on a small scale. This wasn't just universe-changing technology. This was the kind of thing that could end free will as we knew it. Imagine one species being able to impose their thoughts, their desires, their will on another. The applications were endless and horrifying. No wonder the Alith wanted it. Their entire culture was built on hierarchy and control. Impressive progress, Mr. Hale. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Commander Sithrak stood in the bridge doorway, his 4 eyes examining the exposed navigation console where I'd been working. You scared the hell out of me, I said, trying to calm my racing heart while casually closing the technical files on my portable display. My apologies. I came to check on your progress personally. Supervisor Kex's reports have been Enthusiastic. Yeah, well, I'm good at what I do. I grabbed a wrench. Anything to keep my hands busy and normal looking. The engines are almost ready. Navigation will take another day or two. Excellent. We are eager to have the ship operational. He moved closer, and I could smell that distinctive Elith scent, like ozone and copper. Tell me, have you found anything unusual during your repairs? Unusual how? Hidden compartments, unauthorized modifications, data storage devices that don't appear on the ship's manifest. I forced myself to meet all four of his eyes. Just the usual smuggler tricks. Hidden compartment behind the medical bay, probably for contraband. Few extra data cores in the computer system, likely for false identities. Nothing special. His skin shifted to a thoughtful orange. I see. And you've reported all of these findings? Sure. It's all in my work logs. I hadn't written a work log in 5 years, but he didn't need to know that. Good. Very good. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, one more thing. We've received word that Captain Lorne will be joining us in 2 days to oversee the final handover of the vessel. I thought you might like to know, given your history. My heart stopped. Arya was coming here. Either she was safer than her message implied, or this was a trap. Maybe both. Thanks for the heads up, I managed. After Sithrak left, I worked faster. If Arya was coming in 2 days, I needed a plan. The consciousness amplification matrix data was hidden across multiple systems now, pieces of it scattered through the ship's computers like a virus waiting to be assembled. But I needed help. I couldn't take on the Elith alone, and I certainly couldn't protect Arya by myself. That evening, I made 2 calls from a secure terminal in the station's engineering section. The first was to Dr. Kira Vaughn, the only xenopsychologist I knew who specialized in Elith behavioral patterns. We'd met years ago when she was writing a paper on interspecies crew dynamics and needed a difficult human subject for her research. We'd stayed in touch, mostly because she found my disaster of a life academically fascinating. Marcus, it's been months. Tell me you're not calling because you're in trouble. Define trouble. Oh, for the love of... What did you do? Nothing yet, but I need to know everything about Elith power dynamics and coercion techniques. Specifically, how they might control an unwilling human subject. There was a pause. Marcus, that's not just trouble. That's the kind of trouble that gets people disappeared. What are you involved in? It's Arya. She's in danger. Another pause. I'll send you what I have. And Marcus, be careful. The Elith don't play games when it comes to their secrets. The second call was to Tovin, a Relian merchant who owed me his life after I'd fixed his ship's life support system minutes before it would have failed. Relians looked like what would happen if an octopus evolved to walk upright and developed a fondness for expensive suits. Tovin specifically looked like what would happen if that octopus also developed a gambling problem and a talent for creative lying. Marcus, my favorite human, tell me you're finally taking me up on that business opportunity in the Vegan system. Not exactly. I need information about Elith military operations in this sector. Specifically, anything involving Commander Sithrak. Tovin's chromatophores shifted to a pattern I recognized as nervousness. Sithrak, oh, my friend, you don't want to be asking about him. He's inner circle, reports directly to the Hegemony Council. Which is why I'm asking you. You hear things. I hear many things. Most of them could get me killed if I repeat them. Tovin, remember that time your life support failed, and you were 20 minutes from suffocating? You humans and your emotional manipulation. Fine. But you didn't hear this from me. Word is Sithrak's been running a black project for months. Something about acquiring extinct technology. He's been hiring mercenaries, buying ships, throwing around more credits than a mining consortium. Whatever he's after, the Hegemony wants it bad. Extinct technology. That's what they were calling the consciousness amplification matrix, which meant they didn't just want it. They needed it for something specific. Thanks, Tovin, I owe you. You owe me more than you can afford, my friend. Try not to get killed before you can pay me back. I spent the rest of the night working on the silver mirth, but my mind was elsewhere. Pieces of a plan were forming, dangerous and probably stupid, but it was all I had. If the Alith wanted the ship operational, I'd give them exactly that, but I'd also give them something extra. A few surprises hidden in the code, waiting for the right moment. The next day, Supervisor Kex seemed more agitated than usual. His skin had gone from yellow-green to a sickly orange, and he kept checking his communicator. Problems, I asked, carefully casual as I welded a new coupling to the port engine. Commander Sithrak wishes to accelerate the timeline. The ship must be ready tomorrow. Tomorrow, that's impossible. I still have the navigation array to calibrate, the weapon systems to test, the life support to... Tomorrow, Kex repeated, his 4 eyes narrowing. Or the contract is void. I wanted to argue, but that would be what the old Marcus would do. The stubborn, difficult Marcus, who didn't know how to play the game. Instead, I nodded. I'll need to work through the night, and I'll need an assistant, someone who knows Alith system protocols. That can be arranged. The assistant they sent was not what I expected. She was human, young, maybe 25, with the hollow eyes of someone who'd seen too much too fast. She introduced herself as Riley and said nothing else for the first hour. Finally, as we worked on rewiring the navigation console, she spoke. You knew Captain Lorne. It wasn't a question. Yeah, we flew together for a while. She talked about you, said you were the best mechanic she'd ever known. Also, said you were a stubborn idiot who couldn't see a good thing when it was right in front of you. That sounded like Arya. She also said, Riley continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper, that if anything happened to her, you'd be the one to figure it out. I stopped working. You know where she is? No, but I know why she's not here. The Alith have her sister, little girl, only 16. They're holding her on one of their prison ships as leverage. Arya does what they want. The girl stays safe. She refuses or fails. And she didn't need to finish. The Alith were many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. Why are you telling me this? Because Captain Lorne saved my life once. Got me out of a bad situation on Kepler Station. I owe her. She pulled out a small data chip. This is everything I could find about the prison ship. Guard rotations, security protocols, weaknesses. I don't know what you're planning, but if it helps her, I want in. I looked at this young woman, barely more than a kid herself, offering to risk everything for someone who'd shown her kindness. It was exactly the kind of thing that would get us all killed. It was also exactly the kind of thing Arya would do. Okay, I said, but we're going to need more help, and a much better plan. As we worked through the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. The Alith were too smart to leave obvious vulnerabilities. Sithrak was playing a game several moves ahead, and I was still trying to figure out the rules. But I had something he didn't expect. I had the stubborn refusal to let go that had made me a terrible boyfriend, but might make me just good enough to save the day. I had friends willing to risk everything for a chance at doing the right thing. And most importantly, I had intimate knowledge of every inch of the silver mirth, including the modifications Arya had made that weren't in any manual. Tomorrow, Arya would arrive. Tomorrow, Sithrak would expect to take possession of a fully operational ship with universe-changing technology hidden inside. Tomorrow, everything would come to a head. Tonight, I had work to do. The morning arrived like a hangover, sudden and unwelcome. I'd managed maybe 2 hours of sleep after Riley left, my mind churning through possibilities and probabilities. None of them good. The silver mirth was as ready as I could make her in the time allowed. Every system checked out. Every modification hidden beneath layers of standard code that would take weeks to unravel if you knew what to look for. Years if you didn't. Supervisor Kex arrived early, his skin cycling through anxious yellows and oranges like a mood ring having a panic attack. "The commander will be here within the hour," he announced, all 4 eyes fixed on me. "The ship must be ready for immediate departure." "It's ready," I said, wiping my hands on a rag that had seen better decades. "All systems operational. She'll fly better than new." Better than new. His skin flickered purple, suspicious. Figure of speech. She'll fly exactly as well as a properly maintained Corsair-class vessel should fly. No better. No worse. That seemed to satisfy him. The truth was, I'd made sure the Silver Mirth would fly exactly as well as I needed her to fly, when I needed her to fly that way. The little surprises I'd planted in her systems were invisible now, dormant code waiting for the right trigger. But explaining that to an anxious Elith supervisor seemed counterproductive to my continued breathing. Dr. Kira Vaughn arrived 30 minutes before Sithrak was due, dressed like a station technician and carrying a toolkit that probably contained more psychological warfare implements than actual tools. She was tall, dark-skinned, with a kind of sharp intelligence in her eyes that made you feel like she could read your thoughts, and was mildly disappointed by what she found. "Marcus," she said, not bothering with pleasantries, "I've reviewed everything you sent me. The behavioral patterns you described are consistent with a Lith coercion methodology, specifically their hostage leverage protocols. They're not subtle about it because they don't need to be. Fear is a universal language. Can you help?" "I can try. But Marcus, what you're planning, it's not just dangerous. It's the kind of dangerous that ends with people floating home in sealed containers. The Elith don't forgive, and they definitely don't forget." "Yeah, well, neither do I." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right. When this goes sideways, and it will go sideways, remember that Elith have a physiological tell when they're about to violence. Their secondary eyes dilate independently from their primary ones. You'll have about 2 seconds warning." 2 seconds. Great. That's plenty of time to write my will. Your sarcasm is a defense mechanism masking deep-seated anxiety about emotional vulnerability, she said matter-of-factly. Also, you're an idiot for still being in love with someone who left you. Thanks for the free therapy session. That'll be 300 credits. I take payment plans. Despite everything, I laughed. It felt good, normal. Like maybe we weren't about to attempt something monumentally stupid. Tovin arrived next, sliding into the docking bay with the grace of a cephalopod, trying to pretend it had bones. His chromatophores were displaying what I'd learned was his version of nervous excitement, a sort of rippling pattern that made him look like a very anxious disco ball. "Marcus, my friend, I bring gifts." He produced a small device from one of his many pockets. Signal jammer, military grade, very illegal, very expensive, very much going to save your life. "How much do I owe you?" "Your continued existence is payment enough. Also, 30,000 credits. But we can discuss that if you survive." "When I survive?" Such optimism very human, very likely to get you killed. The docking bay's main doors hissed open, and my heart stopped. Commander Sithrak entered first, his ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine, his 4 eyes scanning the bay with predatory efficiency. Behind him came a full escort of Elith soldiers, their plasma rifles held at ready position. And behind them, Arya. She looked exactly the same and completely different. Same red hair pulled back in a pilot's knot. Same way of walking like she owned whatever space she occupied. Same green eyes that had once looked at me like I was the only star in her sky. But there was something else now, a tightness around her mouth, a careful control in her movements that screamed wrong to anyone who knew her. She was wearing an Elith prisoner collar, the kind that could deliver anything from a mild shock to instant death, depending on the whim of whoever held the control. the kind that marked her as property. Our eyes met across the docking bay, and for a moment, the rest of the universe ceased to exist. 2 years of anger, hurt, and unresolved everything crashed into me like a meteor strike. Then, her expression shifted, became cold, dismissive, and she looked away. "Mr. Hale," Sithric said, his voice cutting through my emotional spiral. "I trust the ship is ready." "All systems operational," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Excellent. Captain Lorne will inspect your work and confirm the vessel's readiness." Arya walked past me without acknowledgement, boarding the Silver Mirth like I was just another hired mechanic. Which, technically, I was, but it still stung. I followed them aboard, Kira and Tovin staying in the bay as planned. Too many cooks in this particular kitchen would spoil more than soup. They'd be ready when I needed them. If I needed them. When I inevitably needed them. Arya moved through her ship with the efficiency of someone who knew every rivet and circuit. She checked the systems I'd repaired, ran diagnostics on the engines, tested the navigation array. She said nothing beyond clipped, professional observations. Engine efficiency at 98%. Navigation calibrated within acceptable parameters. Life support functioning normally. Each word was a small knife, professional, and clean. This wasn't the Arya who used to narrate our flights with running commentary about everything from stellar phenomena to what she'd had for breakfast. This was a stranger, wearing Arya's face. But then, as she leaned over the navigation console, she did something that made my heart race. She input a diagnostic code, her fingers flying over the keys in a pattern I recognized. It wasn't a standard diagnostic. It was our old code, tapped out in maintenance commands. 3 words, repeated twice to make sure I noticed. "Play along, please." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, everything shifted. She was still in there, still fighting, still Arya. The cold stranger act was just that, an act, which meant I needed to play my part too. "Everything looks good, Captain," I said, putting just the right amount of professional distance in my voice. "She'll serve you well." "Adequate work for the time constraints," she replied, not looking at me. "Commander, the vessel is acceptable." Sithrac's skin shifted to pleased purple. "Excellent, Mr. Hale. Your payment has been transferred. Your services are no longer required." This was it. The moment where I could walk away, take my credits, and live to fix another ship another day. The smart play, the safe play. Instead, I did what I always did when faced with a sensible decision. I opened my mouth and made things worse. "Actually, Commander, there's one more thing. The FTL drive has a peculiarity, a harmonic resonance in the crystalline matrix that needs manual adjustment every few jumps. It's not dangerous, just annoying. I could show Captain Lorne the adjustment procedure. Won't take more than 20 minutes. Sithrac's 4 eyes narrowed. "That seems like something that should have been mentioned earlier. It only shows up under specific jump conditions. I discovered it during my final test this morning. Like I said, not dangerous. But if you're planning any long-distance jumps, you'll want to know about it." Arya's expression remained neutral, but I saw her fingers tap against her leg. Morse code. 1 word, careful. 20 minutes, Sithric asked. "Maybe 30. It's a delicate procedure." The commander considered this, his skin cycling through thoughtful oranges. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. Supervisor Kex will observe. The procedure requires working in the engine core. The radiation will scramble recording equipment, and it's not safe for extended Alith exposure. Something about your photosensitive skin and the specific frequency of the core emissions. Complete bullshit, of course, but delivered with enough technical confidence that it sounded plausible." Sithrac's skin flickered with indecision. "I'll be monitoring from out here," Arya said, her voice carefully neutral. "If he tries anything, you'll know immediately." "Smart. By volunteering to watch me. She made herself seem loyal while actually giving us a chance to talk. Sithric agreed, ordering his guards to positions around the ship while Arya and I made our way to the engine core. The moment the heavy radiation shielding closed behind us, Arya's composure cracked. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing here?" "Saving your ass, apparently. You're welcome, by the way. I told you to walk away, in the message. I specifically said walk away." "Yeah, well, I've never been good at following your instructions. Remember that time you told me not to touch the red button? We nearly got sucked into a black hole. But we didn't, and I'm not walking away now either." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for a moment, she was just Arya again. Tired, scared. But still the woman who'd stolen my heart along with that weapons dealer's ship. "They have my sister, Marcus, they have Lily." "I know, Riley told me. Riley's here, that brave, stupid girl. I told her to run." "Apparently, you inspire loyalty in brave, stupid people. Can't imagine why." She laughed, short and bitter. "This isn't a joke, Marcus. The technology on this ship, if the Alith get it fully operational, they'll be able to control entire populations. Make them think what they want, feel what they want, do what they want. It'll be the end of free will as we know it. Which is why we're not going to let that happen. Marcus, there's a dozen Alith soldiers out there, more on their command ship, and an entire fleet backing them up. What exactly is your plan?" "Working on it. But I've got Kira and Tovin helping. Riley's ready to move, and I've made some modifications to your ship that Sithrak doesn't know about." "Modifications?" "The kind that turn a perfectly good spaceship into a very expensive trap. But I need to know something first. That message in the circuit board, was that really from you?" She nodded. "I knew they'd hire someone to fix the ship. I bribed the dockmaster to make sure the contract went to you. I figured you'd either be smart enough to find the message and walk away, or stubborn enough to find it and do something stupidly heroic. Guess which one I picked?" "The stupid one. Always the stupid one." But she was smiling when she said it, and for a moment, it was like the last 2 years hadn't happened. Then her collar beeped, a warning that we'd been alone too long. "Show me this harmonic resonance," she said, loud enough for any potential listeners. I walked her through a completely fabricated procedure, using the time to whisper the real plan. Or at least, as much of a plan as I had. When Sithrak activates the consciousness amplification matrix, it'll seem to work perfectly. But I've reversed the polarity on the quantum entanglement field. Instead of projecting outward, it'll create a feedback loop. Everyone connected to the system will experience everyone else's thoughts simultaneously. For the Alith, with their 4-eye independent processing, it'll be overwhelming. They'll be incapacitated for at least 10 minutes. And humans, headache, disorientation, but manageable. That's when we run. Run where they have ships. Marcus, big ones with guns. Which is why we're not running away. We're running toward... There's an Alliance patrol 3 systems over. Kira has contacts there. We jump. We run. We hope they believe us about the technology before the Alith catch up. That's your plan, Hope. Also determination, spite, and a frankly concerning amount of improvised explosives that Tovin somehow smuggled aboard. Explosives? Just small ones, probably. She stared at me. This is insane. Yeah, well, sanity is overrated. Besides, you started this by sending me that message. You don't get to play the reasonable one now. Her collar beeped again, more insistent. We need to go, she said. Marcus, if this goes wrong... It won't. But if it does, I'm sorry. For leaving. For not explaining. For everything. Arya, no. Let me say this. I left because I was scared. Not of you. Of me. Of how much I loved you. Of how much it would hurt if I lost you. So I ran first. Classic Arya. Right, take the ship and run before anyone can leave you. You came back, though, in your own really complicated, life-threatening way. I never really left. Part of me has been here the whole time, waiting for you to figure out that red buttons are meant to be pushed, no matter what I say. Her collar beeped a third time, and this time it delivered a small shock. She winced but didn't cry out. "Showtime," she said, straightening her shoulders and becoming Captain Lorne again. We emerged from the engine core to find Sithrak waiting, his impatience evident in the angry red of his skin. "The procedure is complete," he demanded. "Yes, Commander," I said. "The harmonic resonance shouldn't be a problem now." "Good. Then your services are no longer required. Leave." I gathered my tools, making a show of being a simple mechanic, happy to be done with a complicated job. As I passed Arya, our hands brushed for just a moment. She pressed something into my palm, small and metallic. It wasn't until I was off the ship that I looked at it. A small data chip, the kind used for navigation backups. But I knew it was more than that. It was trust, hope, and a promise that this wasn't over. Back in the docking bay, Kira and Tovin were waiting. "Well," Kira asked. "Game on," I said. "How do you two feel about Grand Theft Spaceship with a side of Interstellar Incident?" Tovin's chromatophores lit up like a Christmas tree. Finally, I was beginning to think this would be boring. "Trust me," I said, watching the Silver Mirth's engines begin their warm-up sequence. Boring is the last thing this is going to be. The chip in my hand contained more than just navigation data. As I plugged it into my portable display, I found detailed schematics of the Alith command ship, patrol routes, and most importantly, the location of the prison vessel holding Arya's sister. The message attached was simple. "If you're reading this, you didn't walk away. Thank you. Now let's go cause some trouble. P.S. The red button is under the captain's chair. You know you want to push it." I laughed. Actually laughed, standing in a docking bay surrounded by Alith soldiers with everything about to go catastrophically wrong. "What's so funny?" Kira asked. "Just remembering why I fell in love with her in the first place." "And why's that?" She always knew exactly which buttons to push. The Silver Mirth's engines roared to life, and the countdown began. In less than an hour, either we'd all be free, or we'd all be dead. But at least we'd go down swinging, pushing red buttons and refusing to walk away. Sometimes, that's all you can ask for. The next hour was the longest of my life, and I'd once spent 3 days trapped in a malfunctioning escape pod, with nothing but recycled air, and my own questionable life choices for company. I stood in the observation deck overlooking the docking bay, watching the Silver Mirth prepare for departure. Through the transparent aluminum windows, I could see Elith soldiers loading equipment, their movements precise and militaristic. Each crate they carried probably contained enough firepower to level a small moon, or at least ruin someone's entire week. "You're fidgeting," Kira observed, appearing beside me with 2 cups of what passed for coffee on Caldera Station. It tasted like someone had described coffee to someone who'd never experienced joy. But it was caffeinated, and that's all that mattered. "I don't fidget. I make purposeful micro-movements to optimize my readiness state." "You're literally drumming your fingers on the window." I stopped drumming my fingers on the window. "The psychological profile I've built on Commander Sithrak suggests he's a true believer," Kira said, shifting to business. "He genuinely thinks the consciousness amplification matrix will bring order to the galaxy. In his mind, free will is just chaos waiting to happen." "Great. A zealot with universe-ending technology. This keeps getting better. The good news is, zealots are predictable. He'll want to test the technology as soon as possible, probably on a small group first to demonstrate its effectiveness. My guess is, he'll use the crew of the Silver Mirth as test subjects. Including Arya. Especially Arya. Making her the first to lose her free will would appeal to his sense of poetic justice." I watched as Arya emerged from the ship, flanked by 2 guards. Even from this distance, I could see the controlled way she moved, the careful neutrality of her expression. She was playing a role, just as I was about to. "Time to be an idiot," I muttered. "I thought that came naturally to you," Kira said with a slight smile. "Professional idiocy requires nuance. There's a difference between being genuinely stupid and being smart enough to seem stupid. One gets you ignored, the other gets you killed." I made my way back to the docking bay, channeling every ounce of oblivious mechanic energy I could muster. Tovin was already there, having somehow convinced the Alith guards that he was delivering spare parts. The fact that his spare parts crates actually contained enough explosives to redecorate the station was a detail better left unmentioned. "Mr. Hale," Sithrak's voice boomed across the bay. "I thought you had departed." "Just wanted to make sure she launches okay," I said, injecting what I hoped was the right amount of professional pride into my voice. "First flight after major repairs can be tricky. Wouldn't want my reputation damaged if something went wrong." Sithrak's skin shifted through several colors before settling on amused purple. "Your concern for your reputation is noted. You may observe the launch, but do not interfere." I positioned myself near a console where I could monitor the ship's systems, making a show of checking readouts that I'd already memorized. Riley appeared at my elbow, still playing the role of junior technician. "The prison ship left dock 20 minutes ago," she whispered, while pretending to hand me a diagnostic tablet. "Heading for the jump point to Illith space." "How many guards?" "6, plus automated defenses. But here's the interesting part: they're using an old Terran transport, not an Illith vessel. Easier to maintain, but also easier to hack." "How do you know all this?" "I might have dated someone in station logistics. Briefly. It ended badly, but I kept his access codes. Remind me never to break up with you." "Pretty sure you need to date someone first before you can break up with them." "Fair point." The Silver Mirth's engines reached optimal temperature, the familiar hum filling the docking bay. I knew every note of that engine song, had spent countless hours fine-tuning it until it purred like a contented cat. Now it was about to carry Arya into danger, and all I could do was watch and wait for the right moment. "Commander," one of the Illith soldiers approached Sithrak. "We've received confirmation from the hegemony. They're eager to see the demonstration." "Excellent. Tell them we'll conduct the first test once we clear the station's jurisdiction. No need to involve local authorities in hegemony business." My blood ran cold. They were planning to activate the Matrix as soon as they were in open space. That gave us maybe 2 hours before everything went sideways. I caught Tovin's eye and tapped my wrist twice. He nodded, his chromatophores flashing in a pattern that probably meant understood, but could just as easily have meant I'm about to do something spectacularly stupid. With Tovin, it was usually both. Arya boarded the ship last, pausing at the top of the ramp. For just a moment, she looked back at the observation deck, right at where I stood. The distance was too great to see her expression clearly, but I knew she was looking for me. Then she was gone, swallowed by the ship that had once been our home. "Departure in T-5 minutes," the station's automated system announced. I needed a distraction, something to delay them without seeming suspicious. Fortunately, I had Tovin, and Tovin had absolutely no sense of self-preservation. "Commander Sithrak," Tovin oozed forward, his tentacles moving in what he probably thought was a respectful manner, but actually looked like he was trying to conduct an invisible orchestra. "A moment of your time regarding a business proposition." "We are about to depart," Sithrak said, his skin flashing annoyed orange. Yes. But you see, I have connections in the Outer Rim who would be very interested in Illith technology. Very interested and very wealthy. Perhaps we could discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement." While Tovin wrapped Sithrak in a web of entrepreneurial nonsense, I accessed the Silver Mirth systems through the diagnostic console. The backdoor I'd installed was still active, hidden beneath layers of legitimate code. I couldn't do anything dramatic without triggering alarms, but I could make small adjustments. A slight miscalibration in the navigation array that would take an extra hour to fix. A minor fluctuation in the power distribution that would require a manual reset. Death by 1,000 tiny inconveniences. 3 minutes to departure, the automated system announced. Tovin was still talking, his sales pitch reaching crescendo levels of incomprehensibility. Sithrak looked like he was considering violence, which meant it was time for Phase 2. I walked over, putting on my best helpful mechanic face. "Commander, I'm seeing some unusual readings from the ship's power core. Probably nothing, but there's a slight phase variance in the quantum stabilizers." "You said the ship was fully operational." Sithrak's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. "It is. This is probably just the new components settling in. Happens all the time with repairs this extensive. Should clear up once you run the engines for a bit. But if you want, I could do a quick recalibration. Take maybe 30 minutes. We do not have 30 minutes. Your call, Commander." Like I said, probably nothing. But if the phase variance increases during FTL jump, well, I shrugged, letting him fill in the blanks. Nobody wanted to think about what happened when quantum stabilizers failed during faster-than-light travel. Mostly because the people it happened to weren't around to describe it. Sithrak's skin went through a rainbow of frustrated colors before settling on decisive purple. "Captain Lorne, can you compensate for this phase variance?" Arya's voice came through the comm system, professionally neutral. "I'll need to monitor it closely, but it should be manageable. Mr. Hale's repairs, while adequate, appear to have some quirks." Adequate quirks, even facing potential slavery via mind control technology. She couldn't resist taking shots at my work. That was my Arya. "Then we proceed as scheduled." Sithrak turned to me. "Your presence is no longer required." "Right. Good luck with the flight. Try not to blow up my repairs." I walked away, forcing myself not to look back as the Silver Mirth's boarding ramp sealed. Kira and Riley were waiting by the exit, both wearing expressions of careful neutrality that didn't quite hide their tension. "Phase 1 complete," I muttered as we left the docking bay. "They're delayed but not stopped. Phase 2 starts now." We made our way to my workshop in the station's industrial sector, a cramped space filled with half-completed projects and fully completed bad decisions. I'd been renting it for 2 years, ever since Arya left, and it had become my combination office, laboratory, and place to drink while contemplating my life choices. Tovin arrived 15 minutes later, looking pleased with himself. "I sold Sithrak 3 cases of Relian aphrodisiac supplements." "You what?" He didn't want them, obviously, but refusing Aurelian's hospitality in business matters is considered deeply insulting in my culture. A fact I may have exaggerated slightly. The point is, I delayed them an extra 10 minutes and planted 3 microtransmitters on his armor. "Tovin, you beautiful tentacle genius." I also pickpocketed his secondary comm unit, but that was just for fun. Dr. Kira had set up her equipment on my workbench, multiple screens showing data streams I couldn't begin to understand. "I've been analyzing the technical specifications from Arya's data chip. The consciousness amplification matrix has a critical flaw. Besides being an abomination against free will. That too. But technically speaking, it requires a massive power draw to initialize. We're talking about the entire output of the Silver Mirth's reactor for at least 30 seconds. During that time, every other system will be running on backup power, including life support and artificial gravity. And more importantly, defensive shields and weapons." I felt a grin spreading across my face. "So when they activate it, they'll be completely vulnerable. For 30 seconds. Yes. After that, the matrix becomes self-sustaining, drawing power from the quantum entanglement field itself. 30 seconds to save the galaxy, no pressure." Riley had been quiet, studying the prison ship schematics on her tablet. "I can get us aboard the transport," she said suddenly. "My ex, the one from logistics, he owes me a favor, a big one. He can get us a maintenance shuttle, something that won't raise suspicions. And then what, we knock on the door and ask nicely for them to release Arya's sister. No. We use this. She held up a small device that looked like a cross between a computer chip and a piece of abstract art. Universal override key. Highly illegal. Extremely expensive. And it'll get us through any door on that transport. Where did you get that? You don't want to know. She was probably right. Okay, I said, pulling up the star chart on my main screen. Here's what we're going to do. The Silver Mirth will reach the jump point in approximately 90 minutes. Based on Sithrek's personality profile and the pressure from the hegemony, he'll want to conduct the test immediately after clearing station jurisdiction. That gives us a window. I pointed to a spot on the chart, an area of space where 3 major shipping lanes intersected. This is where they'll do it. Far enough from the station to avoid witnesses, close enough to a Lith space to run if things go wrong. The prison transport will hold position here, about 10,000 kilometers away. Close enough to watch. Far enough to avoid any potential blowback. So we intercept the transport during the test, Kira said, understanding immediately. While everyone's attention is on the Silver Mirth. Exactly. Riley and Tovin liberate Lily. Kira and I take a second shuttle and approach the Silver Mirth during the 30-second vulnerability window. We board, disable the Matrix, and run like hell. That's insane, Riley said. That's the plan, I corrected. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Also a fair point. Tovin's chromatophores shifted to a pattern I recognized as amusement. I like it. It's so stupid it might actually work. But you're forgetting one thing. What's that? The Alith command cruiser. It'll be monitoring everything. The moment something goes wrong, they'll respond with overwhelming force. Which is why we're going to give them something else to worry about. I opened another screen, showing the explosive charges Tovin had smuggled aboard the station. These are positioned at key points throughout Caldera Station's outer hull. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to trigger every emergency protocol in the book. The station will go into lockdown. All ships will be recalled to assist, including the Alith cruiser. You're going to bomb the station, Riley looked horrified. Controlled detonations on the uninhabited sections. Some hull scarring. A lot of alarms. 0 casualties. But it'll look like a terrorist attack. And the Alith will have to respond. They can't ignore an attack on a neutral station without causing a diplomatic incident. When did you have time to plan all this? Kira asked. I didn't. I'm making it up as I go. But it sounds good, right? The room fell silent as they absorbed the plan. It was desperate, probably suicidal, and relied on timing that would make a Swiss watchmaker nervous. It was also the only shot we had. I'll need 20 minutes to hack the prison transport systems, Riley said finally. Maybe 15 if I'm lucky. I can provide a distraction, Tovin offered. Elith find Relians deeply unsettling. Something about our non-hierarchical neural structure. I could have a medical emergency that requires their attention. I'll handle the technical side, Kira said. Once we're on the Silver Mirth, I can use my understanding of Alith psychology to talk our way past any guards. Plus, I've been developing a sensory disruptor that should work on their 4-eye vision system. And I'll do what I do best, I said. Push buttons that shouldn't be pushed and hope for the best. That's not really a skill, Riley pointed out. It's gotten me this far. You're sitting in a workshop planning to assault 2 ships and fake a terrorist attack to save your ex-girlfriend from alien mind control. Like I said, it's gotten me this far. The Silver Mirth's energy signature appeared on my tracking screen, moving steadily toward the jump point, somewhere on that ship. Arya was playing her part, maintaining her cover while secretly hoping her ridiculous ex-boyfriend would figure out her plan and do something stupidly heroic. Well, she was about to get her wish. The stupid part, anyway. The heroic part remained to be seen. All right, people, I said, standing up and trying to project more confidence than I felt. We've got 70 minutes to steal 2 shuttles, arm multiple explosives, and position ourselves for the worst rescue attempt in galactic history. Questions. Just one, Tovin said. What do we do if this actually works? Honestly, I haven't thought that far ahead. Probably run. Definitely hide. Maybe drink heavily. A solid post-mission plan, Kira said dryly. I'm a simple man with simple needs. We spent the next hour in controlled chaos. Riley worked her magic on the shuttle requisitions, somehow convincing the dockmaster that 2 emergency maintenance checks were needed on vessels that coincidentally had the range and speed we required. Tovin distributed his remaining explosives with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this way too many times before. Kira prepared her equipment, loading portable versions of her consciousness studies into a field kit. I made modifications to my portable hacking rig, updating it with every override code and backdoor I'd ever discovered, stolen, or accidentally created. The Silver Mirth systems would recognize my access codes, but I'd need to be physically connected to overcome Sithrak's security measures. That meant getting aboard without getting shot, which was admittedly not my strongest skill. Shuttle 1 is prepped and ready, Riley announced. Official designation is Maintenance Unit 4. Try not to blow it up. No promises. What about Shuttle 2? Loading now. I've listed Tovin as the pilot, since Relians have universal transit rights. Nobody will question him leaving the station. Perfect. Kira, you ready? As ready as one can be for a poorly planned assault on superior forces with minimal backup and no exit strategy. That's the spirit. The Silver Mirth had reached the designated coordinates. Through my tracking system, I could see them holding position, probably running final checks on the consciousness amplification matrix. The prison transport was exactly where we'd predicted, maintaining a safe distance but close enough to observe. This is it, I said. Everyone knows their role. Nods all around. Good. And remember, if this goes badly, if we get caught or killed or worse, I want you all to know that this was definitely Arya's fault for sending me that message in the first place. Technically, it's your fault for not walking away like she told you to, Riley pointed out. Details, irrelevant details. We headed for the docking bays, splitting into our designated teams. Riley and Tovin to Shuttle 1, Kira and I to Shuttle 2. As we walked, I pulled up the remote detonator app on my comm unit. 48 explosive charges, all waiting for my signal. It would be the most expensive fireworks show in station history. Marcus, Kira said quietly as we reached our shuttle. You know the odds of this working are essentially 0, right? Never tell me the odds. That's not actually an answer. No, but it sounds cool, and sometimes that's enough. We boarded the shuttle, and I took the pilot's seat. It had been 2 years since I'd flown anything, but muscle memory kicked in. Pre-flight checks, system initialization, engine warm-up. Just like riding a bike. If bikes could achieve faster-than-light travel, and had a disturbing tendency to explode when operated incorrectly. Shuttle 2 requesting departure clearance, I said into the comm. Shuttle 2, you are cleared for departure. Have a safe flight. Safe. Right. We were about to attack 2 ships, fake a terrorist incident, and challenge an alien military force with nothing but determination and questionable decision-making skills. But sure, safe flight. The shuttle lifted off, and through the viewport, I could see Shuttle 1 departing from a parallel bay. Tovin was at the controls, his tentacles moving across the interface with disturbing efficiency. For a merchant who claimed to be bad at violence, he flew like someone who'd outrun his share of trouble. Silver Mirth is powering up their main reactor, Kira reported, monitoring her instruments. Energy levels consistent with matrix initialization. How long? 10 minutes, maybe less. I pushed the throttle forward, accelerating toward our destiny, or our doom. With my track record, probably both. Hey, Kira. Yes. Thanks. For helping. You didn't have to get involved in this. Marcus. You're a walking disaster who makes terrible decisions and has an unhealthy attachment to a woman who abandoned you. Of course I had to help. Someone needs to document this catastrophe for scientific purposes. Your bedside manner needs work. I'm a psychologist, not a therapist. I'm here to understand your dysfunction, not fix it. The silver mirth grew larger in our viewport, its sleek lines marred by the recent repairs. My repairs. I'd fixed that ship with my own hands, brought it back from the edge of destruction. Now I was about to break it again, but this time on purpose. 5 minutes to contact, I announced. Everyone ready. Through the comm, Tovin's voice crackled. In position, ready to begin Operation Tentacle Disaster. We didn't agree on that name, Riley protested. All operations need a name. It's traditional. Fine, then this is Operation Bad Decisions. I prefer Operation Pushing the Red Button, I said. Can we focus, please? Kira interrupted. The Matrix is charging. 30 seconds until activation. This was it. The moment where everything either came together or fell apart spectacularly. I reached for the detonator app, my finger hovering over the activation button. Time to find out which kind of disaster we were about to become. My finger pressed the detonator button, and Caldera Station lit up like a celebration in hell. The explosions rippled across the station's outer hull in a carefully choreographed sequence, each detonation precisely placed to cause maximum panic with minimum actual damage. Through the shuttle's rear viewport, I could see emergency lights blazing to life, escape pods launching prematurely, and the massive Alith command cruiser breaking from its patrol pattern to respond to the apparent attack. Station emergency protocols activated, Kira reported, monitoring the comm channels. All vessels being recalled. The Alith cruiser is moving to defensive position around the station. Tovin, Riley, you're clear, I said into the comm. The prison transport is on its own. Acknowledged, Riley's voice crackled back. Beginning approach. Tovin is having his medical emergency in 3, 2. Through the tactical display, I watched their shuttle suddenly veer erratically toward the prison transport, broadcasting a medical distress signal that would make any captain legally obligated to respond. Tovin was probably putting on the performance of his life, his tentacles flailing in fake distress while Riley played the panicked pilot. Meanwhile, the silver mirth hung motionless in space, its entire power output focused on the glowing apparatus mounted in its cargo bay. The consciousness amplification matrix was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching a star being born or a civilization ending. Energy cascaded through crystalline structures that shouldn't exist, creating patterns that hurt to perceive even through the filtered viewport display. 10 seconds until the vulnerability window, Kira said, her hands steady on her equipment, despite the insanity of what we were about to do. You know, I said, pushing our shuttle to maximum acceleration. Most people try to avoid flying directly at ships that want to kill them. Most people aren't in love with someone on said ship. I'm not. It's complicated. Marcus, we're about to assault an alien military vessel to rescue your ex-girlfriend. It's really not that complicated. The matrix pulsed, and suddenly, every light on the silver mirth went dark. The 30-second window had begun. I slammed the throttle forward, our shuttle screaming through space toward the darkened ship. Without shields or weapons, we could approach without being immediately vaporized. But that also meant the ship's crew would be on high alert. They'd know they were vulnerable. Magnetic grapples ready, I announced, flipping switches I'd only read about in manuals. Impact in 15 seconds. Marcus, Kira said quietly, if this doesn't work. It'll work. But if it doesn't, then at least we'll have a really interesting obituary. The silver mirth filled our entire viewport now, its hull dark except for the ethereal glow of the matrix. I could see figures moving behind the bridge windows, probably Sithrak wondering why his moment of triumph felt so much like a trap. Because it was. Our shuttle hit the silver mirth's hull with a bone-jarring clang, magnetic grapples locking us in place near an emergency airlock. I'd already started the override sequence, my fingers flying over the controls as I input every backdoor code I'd ever hidden in the ship's systems. 20 seconds remaining, Kira announced. The airlock cycled open, and we were in. The corridor beyond was lit only by emergency strips, casting everything in a sick green glow. 2 Elith guards were waiting, their weapons raised, but Kira was ready. She triggered her sensory disruptor, a device that sent conflicting signals to their 4-eye vision system. The guards staggered, trying to process 4 different versions of reality simultaneously. I didn't waste time being gentle. A wrench to the first guard's head, a knee to the second's whatever Elith had instead of groins. And we were past them. 10 seconds. We ran through corridors I knew better than my own apartment. Left at the junction, right at the mess hall, straight through the passage that Arya and I had once used for entirely different midnight activities. The cargo bay doors were sealed, but I'd built those locks myself. They recognized my biosignature and opened without protest. The Matrix dominated the cargo bay, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with otherworldly energy. Sithrak stood before it, his 4 eyes reflecting the light, like a demon from some techno-organic nightmare. Arya was beside him, still wearing that damn collar, her face carefully neutral. 5 seconds. "Marcus Hale," Sithrak said, his voice harmonizing with barely controlled rage. "You've made a fatal error."
Yeah, I get that a lot.
I pulled out my portable rig and dove for the Matrix's control panel. My fingers found the input port, jacking in just as the 30-second window closed. The ship's lights blazed back to life, weapons and shields returning to full power. But I was already in the system. The code I'd hidden throughout the Silver Mirth activated all at once. Every modification, every trap, every little surprise I'd prepared for this moment came online. The Matrix's energy field reversed, exactly as planned. But something else happened too. Something I hadn't expected. I felt it. The consciousness amplification matrix wasn't just technology. It was something more, something that touched the very essence of thought itself. And as it reversed, as it turned inward instead of outward, I felt every mind in its radius. Sithrak's rage and ambition, his absolute certainty that order must be imposed on chaos, the guards' confusion and training-bred loyalty, Kira's brilliant, analytical mind racing through probability calculations, and Arya's fear for her sister, her guilt over dragging me into this, and underneath it all, a love she'd never stopped feeling, just buried under 2 years of survival and necessity. But the Elith were feeling it too, and for them, it was overwhelming. Their 4-eye neural structure, designed to process multiple input streams simultaneously, couldn't handle the sudden influx of overlapping consciousness. They collapsed, clutching their heads, their skin cycling through colors I'd never seen before. "Now!" Arya shouted, producing a small device from somewhere and pressing it against her collar. The restraint fell away, clattering to the floor. She'd had the key the entire time, waiting for the right moment. Sithrak tried to rise, reaching for his weapon, but the feedback was too intense. He managed 2 steps before collapsing again, his nervous system overloaded by the very technology he'd planned to use on others. "We need to destroy it," Arya said, grabbing my arm. "The Matrix. It's too dangerous to exist." "Already on it," I replied, typing commands into my rig. "But we've got another problem. The feedback loop is sustaining itself. It won't stop until it burns out, and that could take hours. Hours of everyone feeling everyone else's thoughts. Within a 50-kilometer radius, yeah. Through the comm system." I could hear chaos erupting. The prison transport was reporting mass confusion among its crew. Tovin's voice cut through, gleefully announcing that he and Riley had retrieved Lily during the chaos. Even the Elith command cruiser was affected, its crew unable to function with their enhanced neural structures overwhelmed. "Can you contain it?" Kira asked, her scientific mind already working on the problem. Maybe, if I can localize the field, compress it down to just this room. My fingers flew over the controls, rewriting code on the fly, trying to build a containment protocol for something that shouldn't exist in the first place. The matrix pulsed, its light growing brighter, and the sensation of overlapping consciousness grew stronger. I felt Sithrak's memories now, not just his emotions. His childhood on Elith Prime, the rigid hierarchy that shaped him, the genuine belief that free will was a curse that needed curing. I felt his fear, deep and primal, that chaos would consume everything he'd built. Marcus, Arya's hand found mine. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. The matrix is overheating. She was right. The crystalline structure was beginning to crack, energy bleeding through in violent spurts. If it shattered completely, the release could take out half the ship. Almost there, I muttered, executing the final commands. Just need to... There... The field collapsed inward, shrinking from 50 kilometers to 50 meters, to just the cargo bay itself. The sensation of other minds faded to a whisper, then disappeared entirely. The matrix gave one final pulse, then went dark, its crystal structure cracking and falling apart like ice in a microwave. Sithrak stirred, his 4 eyes focusing on us with difficulty. You've destroyed everything. The peace we could have brought. The order. Your order, Arya said, standing over him. Built on slavery of the mind. That's not peace, Commander. That's just fear with a pretty name. The hegemony will hunt you, he managed. All of you. There's nowhere in the galaxy you can hide. Maybe, I said, helping Kira to her feet. She'd been hit harder by the psychic feedback than she'd let on. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today's problem is getting off this ship before your friends recover. Arya was already at the cargo bay's communication panel, her fingers dancing over the controls with the efficiency I remembered. Tovin, Riley, status report. We have the package. Riley's voice came back, using code for Lily. Returning to station. Suggest you do the same before our friends wake up. Negative, Arya replied. The Silver Mirth is compromised. We'll take emergency pods and rendezvous at the secondary location. What secondary location? I asked. The one I'm about to make up, she said, flashing me a grin that made the last 2 years disappear. You're not the only one who can improvise. We left Sithrak and his guards in the cargo bay, sealed behind blast doors that would take them hours to cut through once they recovered. The Matrix was nothing but expensive scrap now, its secrets scattered across the floor in crystalline fragments. I pocketed a few pieces, partly as evidence, mostly as a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. The escape pods were where I'd left them, because even when fixing a ship for potentially hostile aliens, I always made sure the escape routes worked perfectly. Professional pride and survival instinct weren't mutually exclusive. Wait, I said as Arya reached for the launch controls. The Elith cruiser will track the pods. They'll intercept us before we reach the station. Not if we give them something else to worry about, Kira said, pulling out her comm unit. Remember those psychological profiles I mentioned? I've been broadcasting them on Elith military frequencies for the last 10 minutes. You've been what? Every dirty secret, every embarrassing personal detail about their command structure. Nothing classified, just uncomfortable. Commander Sithrak's unusual fascination with human mating rituals, for instance, or Sub-Commander Krex's financial irregularities. They'll be too busy dealing with the fallout to chase us. Dr. Kira Vaughn, Arya said with genuine admiration. You're evil. I prefer pragmatically unethical. It sounds better on grant applications. We launched the pods. 3 tiny specks of metal, hurtling through space toward safety. Through the viewport. I could see the Elith cruiser in the distance, its lights flickering as its crew dealt with whatever internal chaos Kira had unleashed. So, I said, trying to sound casual as our pod tumbled through space. You want to talk about what I felt back there during the feedback? Arya was quiet for a moment. Then you felt it too. Hard to miss. You still. Even after everything.
Marcus, I left because I loved you too much to stay. That doesn't make sense. I know. But I've got a talent for self-sabotage, and you deserved better than someone who runs when things get real. You came back, though, in the most convoluted, dangerous way possible. But you came back. I needed someone I could trust. Someone clever enough to find my message, stubborn enough to ignore my warning, and crazy enough to assault an alien military vessel with nothing but determination and bad decisions. So you needed me specifically. I needed you specifically.
The pod's proximity alarm chimed. We were approaching Caldera Station, which looked like it had been through a war. Emergency vehicles swarmed the damaged sections. Repair crews already at work, patching the holes I'd blown in the hull. The official report would probably blame it on a meteor shower or pirates. Nobody would want to admit that one mechanic with commitment issues and explosive devices had caused that much chaos. We docked at a maintenance port, avoiding the main bays where security would be asking uncomfortable questions. Tovin's shuttle was already there, and I could see Riley helping a teenage girl who had to be Lily. She had Arya's red hair, but softer features, and the way she hugged her sister when we emerged made every insane risk worth it. You did it, Lily said, looking at me with eyes that were way too knowing for a 16-year-old. Arya said you would. She said you were too stubborn to let us down. Your sister has a way of making me do stupid things, I said. Heroic things, Arya corrected. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Tovin oozed over. His chromatophores displaying what I'd learned was smug satisfaction. The station authorities are in chaos. The Elith are blaming saboteurs. The dock workers are blaming poor maintenance. And somehow, 17 people are claiming insurance for damages that haven't actually happened yet. What about the Alliance Patrol? Kira asked. We still need to report the Matrix technology. Already done, Riley said, holding up a data pad. Sent everything to my contacts in Alliance Intelligence. They're very interested in why the Elith were developing mind control technology. There's going to be an investigation. Which means we should probably disappear, Arya said. All of us. At least until things cool down. I know a place, Tovin offered. A little moon in the outer rim. No questions asked. Decent drinks. And the local wildlife only tries to eat you on Tuesdays. Sounds perfect, I said. But first, we need to deal with one small problem. Everyone looked at me. The silver mirth. It's still out there. And once Sithrak recovers, he'll use it to chase us. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. Arya smiled. The kind of smile that had gotten me into trouble more times than I could count. Way ahead of you. She pulled out a small device. A remote detonator, not unlike the one I'd used earlier. Remember those modifications you made? I made a few of my own. Nothing major. Just a small explosive charge in the FTL drive. Just enough to strand them for a few weeks. You booby-trapped your own ship. Our ship, she corrected. And yes, I had a feeling we might need an exit strategy. She pressed the button. In the distance, through the station's observation windows, we could see a small flash of light where the silver mirth drifted. Not an explosion. Just a controlled burn that would leave them with sublight engines only. They could limp back to Elith space, but it would take them months. You know, I said, we make a pretty good team when we're not avoiding each other. We make a dangerous team, Arya corrected. Look what we accomplished in just one day. Assault, theft, destruction of property, faking a terrorist attack, and destroying a technology that could have enslaved the galaxy. Don't forget the insurance fraud, Tovin added helpfully. I filed claims for emotional distress caused by the explosions. You caused the explosions. Irrelevant details. We stood there in the maintenance port, a group of misfits who'd just saved the galaxy through a combination of bad decisions and worse plans. Riley and Lily were talking quietly, the older girl explaining something that made the younger one laugh. Kira was already taking notes, probably planning a paper on the psychological implications of consciousness overlap. Tovin was counting something on his tentacles, likely calculating how much I owed him now. And Arya stood beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched, looking at the stars through the viewport. "So," she said, "what now?" "Now we run," I said. "Hide out on Tovin's murder moon. Wait for the heat to die down, then figure out what comes next. Together. If you want. I mean, you did go through all this trouble to get my attention. Seems rude to walk away now." "Marcus Hale, are you actually suggesting we try again after everything?" "Why not? We've already established that we're both terrible at walking away from each other. Might as well make it official. You know I'll probably run again. It's what I do. And I'll probably chase you. It's what I do. That's not healthy. Neither is stealing spaceships or fighting alien military forces. But here we are." She laughed. And for the first time in 2 years, everything felt right. Completely insane. Probably illegal. Definitely dangerous. But right. "Okay," she said. "Let's try again. But this time, no secrets." "Agreed. Also, no more encoding messages and circuit boards. Just call next time." "Where's the fun in that?" Commander Sithrak's threat echoed in my mind. The hegemony would come for us, eventually. The Alliance investigation might buy us time, but we'd made powerful enemies today, the kind that held grudges across generations. But that was future Marcus's problem. Present Marcus had his ship partner back, a new crew of equally dysfunctional friends, and a galaxy full of places to hide. "Hey, Marcus," Arya said as we prepared to board Tovin's shuttle. "Yeah. Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for knowing I wouldn't." "I didn't know. I hoped." "Same thing." "It's really not." "It is when you're talking about us." We boarded the shuttle, leaving Caldera Station and its chaos behind. The Silver Mirth was gone, but we'd find another ship. The Alith would chase us, but we'd keep running. The galaxy was vast and full of problems, but for the first time in 2 years, I was facing them with the right person beside me. "So," Tovin said as we cleared the station's jurisdiction, "who wants to hear about this murder moon? The murders are mostly historical. Hardly any recent ones." "Mostly?" Riley asked, concerned. "Well, there was that incident last month, but that was clearly self-defense. The victim was very aggressive." "The victim?" Lily asked. "Poor choice of words. The temporarily deceased? He got better." "How does someone get better from being murdered?" Kira asked. Her scientific interest piqued. "Excellent question. It involves some very interesting local fungi and a loose definition of death." As Tovin launched into an explanation that raised more questions than it answered, I caught Arya's eye. She was trying not to laugh, her hand finding mine in the familiar way it used to. "No regrets?" she asked quietly. "Are you kidding? This is the most fun I've had in 2 years. We nearly died, multiple times." "Yeah, but we didn't. And we saved the galaxy. We saved free will." "Even better. Do you know how good that's going to look on my resume?" "You can't put saved galaxy from mind control on a resume." "Watch me." The shuttle jumped to FTL, leaving the Alith, the station, and all our problems behind at several times the speed of light. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and probably more bad decisions. I couldn't wait. The murder moon, as it turned out, was actually quite pleasant if you ignored the concerning name and the occasional screaming from the fungal forests. We'd been there 3 weeks, holed up in what Tovin generously called a resort, but was really just a collection of pressurized domes connected by tubes that looked like they'd been installed by someone who'd only heard descriptions of architecture. The gravity was about 2/3 standard, which made walking feel like bouncing, and made Tovin's tentacle locomotion even more disturbing to watch. "Another message from the Alliance," Kira announced, entering the common area where I was elbow-deep in the guts of our newly acquired ship. It wasn't the Silver Mirth, but the Wayward Dream had potential. She just needed about 6 months of repairs and a complete engine overhaul. They want us to testify at the inquiry. Tell them we're dead, I said, not looking up from the manifold I was rebuilding.
I told them that last week.
Tell them we're more dead.
That's not how death works, Marcus. It is on this moon, apparently. Tovin's friend came back from being murdered twice since we've been here.
Through the transparisteel dome overhead, I could see Arya and Lily by the crater lake, teaching Riley some kind of card game that seemed to involve a lot of cheating and thrown cards. They looked relaxed for the first time since we'd arrived. Though Arya kept one hand near the plasma pistol she'd taken to carrying everywhere. The Elith hegemony has officially denied developing mind control technology, Kira continued, scrolling through her datapad. They claim the whole thing was a rogue operation by Sithrak, who has conveniently disappeared. Let me guess, no one can find him to confirm or deny. Exactly, though there are rumors he's been reassigned to a mining colony in the far reaches. The kind where people forget you exist. Couldn't have happened to a nicer genocidal maniac. Tovin slithered in, his chromatophores displaying what I'd learned was excitement. Friends, I bring news and potentially poisonous local delicacies. Please tell me those are two separate things, I said. Mostly separate. The news is that my contacts in the Merchant Guild have heard nothing about us for 3 days. No bounties, no searches, no angry Elith demanding our heads. We might actually be in the clear. That seems suspiciously easy, Kira noted.
That's because it is,
Arya said, entering with the others. Her hair was longer now, starting to curl the way it used to. Nobody just forgives destroying military technology and embarrassing an entire species. They're planning something. Always the optimist, I said, finally emerging from the engine compartment covered in coolant and regret. Always the realist. Someone has to balance out your blind optimism. My optimism isn't blind. It's selectively sighted. That's worse.
That's practical,
Lily laughed. The sound still surprising after weeks of watching her recover from her ordeal. The Elith hadn't treated her badly, but being a hostage leaves marks that don't show on medical scans. She'd been having nightmares, though they were getting less frequent.
So what do we do? Riley asked. We can't hide here forever. The fungal forests are starting to whisper my name, and I don't think that's normal.
It's not, Tovin confirmed cheerfully. That means they've accepted you as potential food. It's actually quite an honor.
I don't want to be honored by fungus.
Too late, the spores have already marked you. While Riley had a minor panic attack about carnivorous fungi, I caught Arya's eye. We'd been dancing around the bigger question for weeks: what came next? The immediate danger had passed, but we were still fugitives, still wanted by at least 3 different governments for various crimes, ranging from destruction of property to assault with intent to save the galaxy.
We could go legitimate,
Kira suggested.
The Alliance owes us for exposing the Elith plot. They might be willing to forget our methods in exchange for our silence.
Since when has anyone in this room been good at silence? I asked. Fair point. We could stay pirates, Arya said, using the term loosely, since we'd technically only stolen 1 ship, and that was from ourselves. Find a new ship. Take jobs in the Outer Rim where nobody asks questions. The wayward dream will be ready in a few months, I offered. She's got good bones. Just needs some love, and approximately all knew everything.
You said that about the Silver Mirth.
And I was right, wasn't I? That ship saved the galaxy. That ship exploded.
Only a little bit. And only because you rigged it to explode.
Details. We were interrupted by an alert from the perimeter sensors. A ship was approaching, something small and fast. Everyone tensed, hands moving to weapons we'd all started carrying. Relax, Tovin said, checking his scanner. It's a courier vessel. Probably just lost tourists who took a wrong turn at the nebula. But I knew that ship configuration. I'd repaired enough of them to recognize a modified stealth courier when I saw one. This wasn't lost tourists. This was someone who'd been looking for us. The ship landed just outside our dome cluster, and a single figure emerged. Human, wearing the kind of expensive suit that screamed lawyer or assassin, or possibly both. He approached with his hands visible, the universal sign for, "I'm probably not here to kill you." "Marcus Hale," he called out as we met him at the airlock. "Depends who's asking." "My name is Harrison Wells. I represent certain interests that were impressed by your recent actions regarding Elith military technology." "If this is about the insurance fraud, that was all Tovin," I said immediately. "Hey," Tovin protested. Wells smiled thinly. "No, Mr. Hale. This is about a job offer." "We're not interested," Arya said flatly. "You haven't heard the offer?" "Don't need to. People who track us down to murder moons to make job offers are the kind of people whose jobs end with us dead or in prison." "On the contrary, Captain Lorne, my employers are interested in individuals with your particular skill set. People who can think creatively, act decisively, and aren't constrained by conventional morality." "You mean criminals," Riley said. "I prefer independent contractors with flexible ethics." "That's just criminals with a thesaurus." Wells pulled out a data pad, showing a credit amount that made everyone's eyes widen. Even Kira, who pretended money didn't matter, couldn't hide her interest. "This would be your signing bonus," Wells said. "Each of you. The actual job pays considerably more." "What's the job?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "There are other technologies like the consciousness amplification matrix. Extinct technologies. They're called remnants of civilizations that destroyed themselves by pushing too far, too fast. My employers want them found and either secured or destroyed, depending on the threat level." "Your employers being?" "People who prefer the galaxy remains in one piece. People with the resources to make your legal troubles disappear, and the connections to ensure you're left alone to do your work." "Shadow government types," Arya said. "Black ops, off the books, no accountability." "If you prefer dramatic terms, yes." I looked at the others. Tovin's chromatophores were cycling through curious patterns. Kira was obviously calculating probabilities. Riley looked skeptical, but interested. Lily was watching Arya, waiting for her sister's lead. And Arya was looking at me. "Can we discuss it?" I asked. "Of course. I'll wait by my ship, but Mr. Hale, this offer expires when I leave. There won't be another." He walked back to his courier, leaving us standing in the airlock with a decision that would shape everything that came next. "It's obviously a trap," Arya said once we were back inside. "Obviously," I agreed. "They probably want to use us as expendable assets." "Almost certainly. We'd be putting ourselves in constant danger." "Without question?" "It's a terrible idea. The worst." We looked at each other for a long moment, then both grinned. "So we're doing it?" she asked. "Oh, absolutely." "This is insane," Kira said. "You're both insane." "That's been well established," I pointed out. "But think about it," Arya said, warming to the idea. "If these extinct technologies are out there, someone's going to find them. Would you rather it be us, who know how dangerous they are, or someone like Sithrak? Plus," I added, "legal immunity and enough credits to actually fix the wayward dream properly." "You just want new toys to take apart," Arya accused. "And you just want an excuse to steal more ships." "I don't need an excuse for that." "Are we really considering becoming space archaeology mercenaries?" Riley asked. "Space archaeology mercenaries with flexible ethics," Tovin corrected. "It sounds much more distinguished." "What about Lily?" Kira asked. "This isn't exactly a safe career path for a teenager." "Neither is being the sister of a wanted fugitive," Lily said, speaking up for the first time. "At least this way. I'm with family, and I can learn. Riley's been teaching me programming. Tovin's showing me trade negotiations, and Marcus is teaching me engineering." "I'm teaching her how to blow things up," I corrected. "That's a subset of engineering." "Besides," Arya said, putting an arm around her sister,
Where else would she go back to Earth where the Elith can grab her again? At least with us. She's protected.
By a group of criminals with questionable judgment, Kira pointed out.
Exactly. Nobody messes with crazy.
The vote was surprisingly unanimous. Even Kira, for all her protests, admitted that studying extinct technologies would be invaluable for her research. And so, an hour later, we stood before Harrison Wells with our answer. "We'll take the job," I said. "But we have conditions."
Of course you do.
We work as a team. No splitting us up. We choose which technologies to pursue. And if we determine something is too dangerous to exist, we destroy it. No questions asked. Wells considered this. "My employers anticipated you might have terms. They agree, with one addition. You'll have a handler, someone to coordinate intelligence and provide support."
We don't need a babysitter, Arya said.
"Not a babysitter. A partner. Someone with access to resources you'll need." He handed over another datapad. "Your first assignment, should you choose to accept it." The image on the screen showed a crystalline structure, not unlike the Matrix, but older, more complex. The accompanying text described something called a temporal perception engine, supposedly capable of allowing someone to perceive multiple timeline probabilities simultaneously. "This was recently discovered in a derelict station in the Prometheus sector," Wells explained. 3 teams have already died trying to retrieve it. The station's automated defenses are aggressive.
Aggressive how, I asked?
They appear to learn from each encounter. The last team reported the defenses had started predicting their moves before they made them.
So we're supposed to outsmart a system that can see the future? If anyone can think of a way, Mr. Hale, it would be someone who treats the impossible as a minor inconvenience.
I looked at Arya. Thoughts?
It's dangerous, probably lethal, and definitely a bad idea.
So we're in...
Obviously. Wells smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. Excellent. Your ship will be upgraded and supplied within the week. Welcome to Project Pandora. Ladies and gentlemen, try not to end the universe.
He left, his courier disappearing into the moon's perpetually cloudy sky. We stood there, a group of misfits who'd just signed up to be the galaxy's most unlikely protection against technologies that shouldn't exist. "You know," Tovin said, his chromatophores displaying amusement, "a month ago we were criminals on the run. Now we're officially sanctioned criminals on the run."
"Living the dream,"
Riley muttered. "Speaking of dreams," I said, "we should probably name our new ship something better than the Wayward Dream."
"What's wrong with Wayward Dream?" Arya asked.
"It sounds like we're lost."
"Aren't we?"
"No, we're directionally challenged with purpose." "That's just lost with extra words."
"How about the second chance?" Lily suggested.
Everyone fell quiet. It was perfect, really. A second chance for Arya and me. For all of us, really. A chance to use our questionable skills for something resembling good.
"The second chance it is," Arya agreed.
That night, as the others celebrated our new employment with Tovin's definitely poisonous local delicacies, Arya and I stood outside, looking up at the stars through the moon's toxic atmosphere. "No regrets?" I asked, our traditional question.
"About taking the job, no. About us also, no. About eating whatever Tovin cooked, increasing by the minute."
"We're really doing this. Hunting extinct technologies. Saving the galaxy. Probably dying horribly.
Together, though."
"Together," I agreed. She leaned against me, and for a moment, everything was perfect. We were wanted criminals working for shadowy government types, hunting technologies that could end civilization, living on a moon where the fungi were sentient and murderous. But we were together, and somehow that made everything else manageable. "Marcus." "Yeah. Next time I leave you, just follow me immediately. This whole 2-year delay thing was inefficient. Next time you leave me, I'm installing a tracking device."
"That's creepy." "That's practical."
"That's love in the age of technology." "That too. Oh, alert chimed on my datapad. The first batch of supplies for the second chance had arrived, including a new FTL drive that made my engineer heart sing. Tomorrow, we'd start installing it, beginning the transformation from barely spaceworthy to something that could take on defensive systems that could see the future. One more thing, Arya said. About that temporal perception thing. You know it's probably going to try to kill us in ways we can't even imagine, right? Yeah, but imagine if we pull it off. We'd be the team that beat a future-seeing defense system. We'd be legends. We'd be employed legends with legal immunity. The best kind of legends. The morning came too quickly, bringing with it the reality of our new situation. Riley had already started researching the Prometheus sector, finding disturbing reports of ships that had gone missing near the derelict station. Kira was deep in theoretical papers about temporal perception, muttering about quantum uncertainties and probability collapse. Tovin was negotiating with suppliers, getting us equipment that definitely wasn't legal, but would probably keep us alive. And I was in my element, surrounded by ship parts and possibilities, building something that would carry us into danger and, hopefully, back out again. The new drive is incompatible with our current power distribution, I announced to anyone listening. I'll need to completely rewire sections 3 through 8. How long? Arya asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. 2 weeks if I don't sleep. 3 if I want to maintain basic human functions. You have 10 days. That's impossible. That's what you said about the silver mirth. And I was right, it was impossible. I just did it anyway. So do it again. Your faith in my ability to ignore physics is touching but misguided. Your ability to complain while simultaneously doing exactly what I ask is predictable but endearing. This was us now. The banter. The impossible deadlines. The casual defiance of probability. We'd fallen back into our rhythm like the 2 years apart had never happened. Except now we were better. We knew what we'd lost, what we'd almost lost, and what we were willing to fight for. 8 days later. The second chance was ready. Not perfect, but ready enough. The new FTL drive hummed with barely contained energy. The shields had been upgraded with a lith technology Tovin had acquired, and the weapon systems were what I generously called functional, and what Arya accurately called held together with hope and wire. Final systems check, I announced from the engine room. Navigation online, Riley reported from her station. Medical bay stocked and ready, Kira added. Though I still maintain we're going to need it. Weapons are existing, Arya said from the captain's chair, the doubt clear in her voice. Tentacles prepared for whatever tentacles do in these situations, Tovin added helpfully. What about you, Lily? I asked. We'd given her the job of monitoring ship's communications, figuring it was safe enough. All frequencies clear. No chatter about us for 3 sectors in any direction. Then let's do this, Arya said. Mr. Hale, take us out. With pleasure, Captain Lorne. The second chance lifted off from the murder moon surface, leaving behind safety and sanity for a life of hunting things that shouldn't exist. The stars stretched into lines as we jumped to FTL, heading toward our first assignment, and whatever impossibility awaited us there. You know, I said over the comm, most people's second chances involve getting a normal job and maybe adopting a pet. Most people are boring, Arya replied. Most people are alive. Also boring. Your definition of exciting is going to get us killed. Probably, but at least it won't be boring. As the second chance sailed through folded space toward our destiny, I couldn't help but smile. 2 months ago, I'd been a bitter mechanic fixing other people's dreams. Now, I was part of something impossible. Flying with people who'd become family, chasing after technologies that could reshape reality itself. And at the center of it all was Arya, the woman who'd left me, saved me, and somehow convinced me that hunting extinct technologies for shadowy government figures was a perfectly reasonable career choice. The ship's computer chimed, indicating we were approaching the Prometheus sector. Whatever came next, whatever impossible challenge awaited us, we'd face it together. The engineer and the captain, the psychologist and the merchant, the programmer, and the kid who was learning to be all of those things at once. We were the crew of the second chance. Unlikely heroes in an unlikely story, pushing red buttons and refusing to walk away from each other ever again. The stars awaited, full of dangers and wonders we couldn't imagine. We couldn't wait to meet them all.